unfortunately, or maybe we should all realize, most of our housing was built post-World II, and the idea at that point, we had 35-year-old people with all kinds of strength and abilities, so we have 3 steps up, 4 steps up to every house. No thought about what's going to happen when we've got that huge chunk of people that get to be my age when steps are a real problem. Transportation. Transportation is kind of multifaceted. The public transportation is kind of a key element in what I think is a city council we can address, but at the same token, this morning I have walking problems, and when it's snowing like this, it's not safe for me, it's not easy for me to get out and walk. I got a neighbor to bring me over, so that's how I was able to solve it today. Not everybody has that opportunity. So I think particularly the northern climate that we have a very significant and serious problem to look at what to do with transportation. And that's coupled with the fact that many of our seniors are losing their physical abilities and skills to drive. I had an eye blinded when I was a very, very young man, and I've worked with one eye since then. That's fading as I get older. I went to Courage Center here a couple of weeks ago and took a half-day long driver's test, and they've advised me to limit my driving. And I expect for myself, I'm 80 years old this year, probably in the next 3 or 4 years, I'm going to not drive. Huge, huge for me, and I think for the rest of the city elders, and you're going to have a lot of people to work with on that issue. Health and wellness, again, health is a huge issue as we age, and we've had the block nurse program here in the city, and there are other similar type programs. It's an awful lot of commercial efforts to do that type of service. I think the concern is how do we make sure people are getting done what they need to do. I have a problem as a parent. I walk with a cane. That comes about, I got my back broke playing football, which means none of my boys played football, but I did. Back in that day, nobody worried about that. I certainly know I was 16 when it happened, and I didn't even feel that bad. But as I've aged, the nerves in my legs are damaged, and so I'm on a cane. I've covered the 3 or 4 topics that we've emphasized here. Any questions at this point in time before I pass this off to Paulette?
I'm not seeing questions right now, but thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone is paying attention.
Madam Chair Glidden, Council President Johnson, and members of the City Council, I'm Paulette Will. I live in Whittier, 10th Ward, and have been an activist in the community for a number of years. I'm a fundraiser by trade. Many of you have gotten telephone calls from me. So, and I'm pleased that I can be here today to elaborate on the 3 priority areas that Dick just mentioned. Priority, and if you're following along in the report, it's on page 13 for housing. Priority area number 1 is to affirm and improve all housing options for Minneapolis residents as they age. Housing action item number 1 is to provide housing options for a range of desires, needs, and budgets. I'm a renter. I'm not a homeowner. Housing action number 2, identify opportunities to connect older adults with age-related housing modifications and financing. And housing action item number 3, look for opportunities to promote low-intensity in-home supportive assistance where gaps exist. A few of the recommendations that we feel are important that should be continued are to have set-aside funds, which the city has already done, for affordable senior housing development and rehab programs, and to continue to support organizations that provide in-home services aimed at keeping older adults in their homes. So if you're following along in the report, the next priority area is transportation. That's on page 18 in the main report. We believe it's important to strengthen and promote safe transportation options that meet the needs of Minneapolis residents as they age. The first priority action area is to strengthen relationships of the Metro Transit to improve safety, comfort, and convenience of public transportation. Transportation action area number 2, promote ride-sharing opportunities. Transportation action item number 3, improve the quality and safety of pedestrian travel. Transportation action item number 4, promote safe driving and safe road design for older adults. The Advisory Committee on Aging recommends an aging and mobility lens to be used in gap assessment of public transportation needs. The committee also recommends identifying and testing various approaches through pilot projects to timely snow and ice removal. Very appropriate today. Page 22 is priority area number 3, health and wellness. A partner to expand and promote older adults' participation in health and wellness initiatives throughout the city of Minneapolis. Health action item number 1 is to identify resources and best practices that focus on helping older adults maintain and improve their physical fitness. Health action item number 2, provide health, self-care, health literacy through clear communication strategies. And health action item number 3, prevent the decline associated with hospitalization by improving post-discharge follow-up. The Advisory Committee on Aging can and will work with the Minneapolis Department of Health to explore how to maximize or model current strategies that the Minneapolis Department of Health is leading and aimed at obesity and chronic disease management in the public high-rises. Any questions?
Not seeing questions right now. Oh, we do have one. Council President Johnson has a question or comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this excellent report, Ms. Kendrick. One of the things that I have found interesting, I have a couple senior residences, including some private as well as public housing high-rises, and I think the management of the private groups, private housing, multi-housing facilities, have done a good job, the ones in my ward anyway, of reaching out to the broader communities and then partnering with institutions to offer like exercise classes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have them for their residents, but then also it's available to the general public through community ed, I think, is the partnership that's used. And I just think that's really, a marvelous use of resources for people who, want to stay in their homes. They're not necessarily interested in moving into the multifamily building, but they certainly need some, exercises geared toward them. And the exercises exist, and those partnerships, I think, are really important. And I'm not sure that happens all across the range of facilities that we have in Minneapolis, but the two that the three that I'm thinking about do a really good job with. They partner with. We have Bremer Way that partners with North Regional Library to get the information out about the things that they have going there, and so I just hope that does occur all across the city.
Well, I would agree, and I think that would be a very excellent pilot project in other parts of the city to take a look at that. I myself go to the YWCA. I'm skipping my water aerobics class this morning, but I try and go at least twice a week. I should do more, but any other questions? And now we'll hear from Raymond Olson from the 4th Ward.
We have one more question for you, Council Member Cam Gordon.
Well, this is a comment, and I could wait too, but you did cover a little of this when you were going over the action steps. There's one that's mentioned both in housing and also in health and wellness that I'm particularly intrigued by. It has to do with providing some supportive assistance, and also I think the block nurse program, which is some assistance now that's provided, came up earlier, and I just really appreciate seeing that there. I represent Southeast Minneapolis and also the Seward and Longfellow neighborhood, so it happens to be an area that is served well by existing programs, and depending on the funding that they receive and the volunteers that work, it fluctuates slightly over the years, but it's really been valued highly, and I've often wondered, well, why can't we try to expand those programs into other parts of the city where there's obviously a big demand and a need? It actually provides at a low cost nurses who can visit homes and provide some of the services that people need to stay in their homes, and it's been fantastic. So I'm glad to see it appear here, and it looks like you've got a thoughtful approach about how we can look at the gaps and see how we can expand some services and coordinate better with the state and the county, and I'm excited about that.
Well, appreciate that input. Ray Olson from the 4th Ward.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman and Council President Johnson, and members of the City Council, we'd like to thank you of the Council for appointing us and letting us serve on this committee in assisting you in making Minneapolis a better city for seniors. Thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Thank you. Did you want to close us up a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you again, Madam Chair, Council President Johnson, and members of the City Council. I just want to say for myself personally, I have never been more grateful and honored to work with this current advisory committee on aging. The amount of talent and skill and knowledge that they bring to the table, this was probably the easiest body of work that I had to, I don't even want to say that I did it because I didn't. They really took it and ran with it and were so extremely thoughtful and really dove into a lot of data, especially the information that was done through focus groups and listening sessions, some conducted by the city, some we actually pulled in Wilder to do focus groups. So, and they went from local all the way to national level data and really, really were extremely mindful. They also met with several city departments to have conversations about what is currently being done and what departments would love to do if they had the opportunity, and how might this committee with their networks and the opportunities that they have per their individual skills and connections, what they can do to bring some partnerships and opportunities to individual city departments like our fire department and our health department. We spoke with regulatory services. Those are just a few. So this was a very, very well done, thoughtful process that was conducted by the committee. And I just want to thank all of them who are here and those who weren't able to be with us today. I've just never been more thrilled, and I look forward every month to sit down and have conversations with our advisory committee on aging.
So I just realized something I probably should ask one of the speakers, but was the AARP of Minnesota involved at all in this work, or was it just the age-friendly designation that they helped recommend, I guess maybe I should say, because I know they've been doing that throughout the country. But
yeah, Madam Chair, council members, what AARP did is provide financial resources. We were able to hire a consultant to, once we gathered all the data and started our conversations, we realized that this might work better if we had an outside source come in. So ARP did provide resources along with the Department of Neighborhood and Community Relations, also put in for the consultant.
Okay. And I didn't know if there was an additional comment that you wanted in the back that, so I think someone else, but anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to AARP of Minnesota as well for partnering on this work. And I'll repeat the thanks to all of the leads who are here helping do the work. I will say AARP of Minnesota helped fund some work that we did kind of on a more granular level in the 8th Ward along East 38th Street. And so they helped us do kind of a similar format of an action plan, which I love because it feels a little bit more tangible to what are the things you want to get done. And we did one that was about active living along East 38th Street. And so, again, that's kind of getting a little more deep, but I think kind of along some of the themes that came out in here. So I just wanted to say, I think that these are very good exercises. They help us keep on track. And to that end, I think I'm going to move that we receive and file, and then I have a staff direction, which I understand was also done kind of in partnership with the committee's recommendation that we have a time to report back formally to the City Council so that we can see what happened to the recommendations. So I'm first going to just ask that we receive and file, and it looks like before that we might have another comment. Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, wanted to echo the thanks for all of the work that has gone into this, and particularly that is so actionable and clear, the next steps that we might take. And I just wanted to note, it strikes me that a lot of these issues are ripe to roll into the comprehensive plan update that we're working on, and Councilmember Reich and I are on that steering committee. So just wanted to note that as one, and highlight that as one way that I think these policies can kind of take that next step. Just since, again, so much volunteer work went into this, just as one way that we won't just leave it here on the page, but rather, take action on these recommendations.
We have Councilmember Quincy, who also had a comment or question.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to, first of all, thank the committee again for their work on this report and for continuing the work on the Minneapolis for a Lifetime initiative. I think one of the things that struck me as these are priorities and goals that we've been working on, and I love the way they've been incorporated into other department goals. So especially when we're talking about the housing or the transportation issues, the health and wellness issues. Those are all things that blend in with the city enterprise work. So it's important to have the perspective and the participation of the committee informing that work. I think I'd like to just highlight some of the other opportunities we have to integrate work with other work being done by the committees. I'm talking about specifically the pedestrian advisory and then areas in the disability advisory committee. These often, and even in youth, when we're talking about intergenerational, multi-generational models, we want to incorporate as much work as happening in other committees. So I'd appreciate if you had any comment on that, Ms. Kendrick, in a moment. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is how we take this information and not just put it here at the City Council level. I'd love to see this more incorporated, and I know it's part of the plan. That's why we put the Minneapolis for a Lifetime initiative in the Neighborhood Community Relations Department. We would love to see this embraced and supported and rolled out in a more fulsome citywide way through our neighborhood organizations. So if you could comment on those two aspects, one, the neighborhood organization, and then the other committees within the city structure.
Certainly, Madam Chair, Councilmember Quincy, Council Committee. First, I'll talk about the relationship we have with some of the other committees and advisory groups. We do have a relationship with the Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities. We are now in the process of figuring out what type of structure makes the most sense, whether it's members of each committee visiting or even having a seat on each of those committees. Interestingly enough, Ethan Foley from the pedestrian the bike committee, they're actually addressing pedestrian issues, has reached out to our committee and will be actually attending our February Advisory Committee on Aging session to start having those conversations about the work that they are undertaking in partnership with the Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities, but what might also be missing as far as an aging lens, thinking about those conversations and some of the assessments that are going to be upcoming that they're going to undergo. And then talking about moving some of these plans outwardly and into the neighborhood organizations, et cetera. Certainly, especially when it comes to snow removal, one of the conversations is how can the neighborhood organizations support pilot projects, such as some of the cities around the nation do, well, the cities that have snow, we should say. Although with our climate change, there might be a lot more cities coming up. But some of the pilot projects they're doing, like snow buddies, and how do the neighborhood organizations, what role do they play in even spearheading these pilot projects where they're pairing an older adult or someone who just has a need for assistance in snow and ice removal and even other chores and services around their homes, such as lawn cutting, how they pair that with community members within their own neighborhood and how they work together. So we are definitely exploring all of those ideas. I know the block nurse programs have been talked about. I've been in conversations with all three of the Living Well at Home block nurse programs and how we can take that model and that structure and move it into areas, especially North Minneapolis, to see what the opportunity is to take that model and expand on it and to address the needs and how North Minneapolis residents want those services. You know, it may not be a block nurse program. It may be, something out of a religious institution or some other programs that are up there. I mean, ACTA and Alzheimer's is very, very active in North Minneapolis, and it might be a branch off of that.
Mike, I had this comment to that. Several of us are on our neighborhood. I'm on the Marcy Home Committee board for extended, and other members have done that. We've had these conversations, not specifically because, as far as I'm concerned, I want to report out, so I've got something to work with. And then the last going around with Community Connections, the program that's done annually, we had a table there. The committee did try to solicit this kind of activity.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to express my excitement and appreciation about this report. It's actually been a long time coming. The council discussed this and we put some staff directions out there. And so some of us have been very excited about seeing what comes up. I also want to recognize that this may be one of the first major products we're seeing from the advisory committee since its kind of restructuring went on. And this, the quality of this product bodes really well for the restructuring and for where the committee is now. It's easy to understand. I really appreciated the priorities, the long, the intermediate, the short-term goals, and also the action steps with a timeline so we can look back next year and say, oh, we missed that one, we hit that one, and here's what we expect to do next year. It's just very concrete, very easy to understand, and very promising. I was also going to talk about other advisory committees. Councilmember Quincy listed and named a number of them, and I think that was very helpful because I think there's a lot of synergy there. This actually fits in well with our Complete Streets plan, and also Public Works right now is reviewing and doing a study of winter sidewalk snow maintenance and what makes sense. I'd also just want to call out the Public Health Advisory Committee. I think that's one that hasn't been listed so far, and I think there's a lot of crossover and some synergy there. And definitely folding this into the comprehensive plan makes enormous sense. One thing to keep an eye on perhaps is the budget as it comes up next year. And we actually, the mayor starts crafting the budget early, in summer, June, end of spring almost. So be aware of that. I know it's not really called out a lot here. I know there were some things that maybe we're coming from other committees, and I'll just mention one of my pet projects that didn't get funded this year, hoping it will next year, had to do with communications and captioning of our meetings that are televised. I know that as as I've gotten older, certain changes to my sensory perceptions have occurred, and there's benefits that come to things. We've also talked about trying to loop. Looping helps people with hearing aids in the council chambers or even the whole building. So think about those things and how they might intersect with others. The last thing that I guess that I wanted to mention is I think we're actually supposed to approve the report, not just receive and file it, and that's the action. So I'd like to.
I apologize.
I'd like to
Thanks.
make sure that we amend it to move full approval of it.
All right. Any other comments from colleagues? Thank you, Councilmember Gordon, for correcting me. I think we don't need to do anything with the receive and file because it's kind of just a more technical action. So we have a motion to approve. All in discussion on that motion. All in approval, please say aye. Aye. And then we have this staff direction, which I mentioned. The staff direction is to direct staff to report back to the committee of the whole. And I'll just let you know it is a ways out there, but this is in alignment with the recommendation from the department on when we expect we would have some items. So the report back would be in June of 2019. All right, and I'll move that discussion on that staff direction. Seeing none, all in approval, please say aye. 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 Opposed? And that item is approved. So again, thank you very much. I believe with that, now we have our reports of committees. So our first committee is Community Development and Regulatory Services. With that, Chair, Councilmember Goodman. Okay. All right. We will have Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management with Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. The Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee is bringing 4 items forward for approval on Friday. All of these items, I believe, also went to Ways and Means. The first is approving acceptance of a Minnesota Homeland Security grant to support Police Department bomb disposal unit. It's about for approximately $117,000 for 1 year. Second item is authorizing an agreement with the University of Minnesota for rental of their full field house to conduct Minneapolis Police SWAT training. Third item is approving acceptance of a grant from the Joyce Foundation for police community engagement. That's a $30,000 grant. And the fourth and final item is authorizing an increase to a contract we have with the Robert Half International, Inc. by $26,000, increasing it by $26,000, not to exceed $75,000 for transcription services provided. I'm assuming it's for the police department. It doesn't say that on my cheat notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have the Transportation and Public Works agenda with Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The committee will be forwarding 12 items. The first 3 are regarding reconstruction projects, 2 sections of 4th Street Southeast and 18th Avenue Northeast. Item 4 is a storm sewer cleaning contract amendment for the adjustments listed. Item 5 is the ready mix concrete contract for the amounts listed. Item 6 is a series of actions for resurfacing for the streets that are listed. It's 7 in total. Item 7 is a street easement deed from Hennepin County for a portion of 2408 Victory Memorial Drive. 8 is the Great Northern Winter Dinner Block Event Permit. And 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all actions regarding contracts and bids for the activities of the department. I'll stand for questions, Madam Vice President.
Thank you, Councilmember Reich. Next, we have the Ways and Means report with Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 18 items on the Ways and Means Committee report for Friday. I think in the interest of time, I don't think I need to read all of them. They are fairly routine legal settlements, grant acceptances, contract amendments, and extensions for all approved items coming from various departments. I would like to highlight 2 things. One is the agreement extension between Hennepin County and the City of Minneapolis regarding the office to end homelessness. That's going to be continued for another 3-year period, and that's an exciting move forward as we continue that work, as well as the acquisition of some real estate in North Minneapolis for municipal operations, particularly around the property and evidence storage. So those are the two highlights of the committee. Happy to stand for any other questions.
Thank you. Next, we have zoning and planning with Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just have one item, which is a vacation of a small parcel on 1923 Lindell Avenue South.
And I would encourage colleagues to themselves read the community development report. With that, I believe we've concluded with our business for today, and we are adjourned.